Teal dear, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks raises a very interesting point without even realizing it. And in this particular instance, he accidentally proves that he himself, and clearly he believes wider society, gives more of a shit about female victims of a crime than male victims of a crime. Now, this shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone who is regular to this channel. We've seen repeated examples of women getting lighter sentences for committing the same crimes as men. We've even looked at studies where women will receive up to 60% less of a sentence and are about half as likely to even go to trial for committing the same crime as a man. A general gynocentric theme is not something that is hard to demonstrate in modern society. And what we have here is just another example of that attitude. So let me lay this out for you so that we've got a little bit of groundwork and context for the statement that we're about to look at. In this episode of the Young Turks News, whatever the hell they're doing, they're talking about an incident that happened on a college campus. And what has allegedly happened here is that 3 white students have been bullying a black student with whom they were living. And the allegation is that the bullying that they were taking part in was racially motivated. Evidence that has been presented for this was they locked a D-lock for a bicycle around this student's neck, and one of the white students owned a Confederate flag. There was also allegedly the phrase 3/5 written on a whiteboard in one of the communal areas, a possible reference to the 3/5 compromise, an old convention in the United States where a slave would be counted as 3/5 of a person for the sake of working out the state's total population for legislative representation and tax purpose. The Young Turks are reporting on this using the Huffington Post as a source, which, as we know, is a fairly left-leaning fem-soc-just publication. So, unsurprisingly, these details which lead it to look more like a racist crime are what they have presented, but we're unaware if there is any more to this particular story, such as whether these sorts of things, which were actually in court deemed to be pranks, were performed on everyone living in the shared accommodation, whether or not there were times when this black student would team up with the white students to prank another one of the white students, or indeed whether express racism and actual hatred of black people was a motivation for this behavior, especially given the fact that one of the white students involved is actually in a relationship with a black woman. But I'm not here to talk about that today because all of this was covered in the court case. The verdict has been made and anything I can say is basically irrelevant at this point. But now we know what the actual situation is. 3 white men have been doing something to a black man, and we've seen the left-leaning media response. It is, of course, that it is blatantly an act of racism and that there is no other possible explanation. And now what Cenk is going to do is he's going to attempt to switch the situation around and paint the picture of what the right-leaning media's reaction would be had the roles been reversed. And he does something very interesting in the process. Let's watch.
No, they put up a sign, New Black Panther Party. They start calling him, hey, white boy, okay? Come here and do what we tell you to do, white boy. Oh, wait. Make it a girl. A white girl, and then they put a lock on her neck, right? And then they trap her in a closet. 5 or 3, I should be saying, apples. 3 black guys do that.
Do you see what he's done? He's reversed the races, right? It's 3 black guys doing it to a white guy. 3 black guys putting a D-lock around this white guy's neck, putting him in a closet, doing all of the same pranking things that these 3 white guys did to this black guy. But what does he do? Oh, no, wait. Make it a girl. Because if all of that stuff happens to a white man, that's not bad enough. It has to be a white girl that this happens to, because that hits people right in the feels. Because suddenly, if the victim is female, that makes it so much more poignant for people. It makes it more outrageous. It makes it more angering. And the funny thing is, I don't think he's even realized that he's done this. He has just almost subconsciously set up a victim hierarchy. It's outrageous when this is done to a black guy, but when you do it to a white guy, it's not quite as bad, therefore we have to make the white person a female. because that makes it just as bad, if not worse, than when it happens to a black man. It's almost like he knows that if he wants to make this seem more terrible and more easy for people to understand how terrible it is, all you have to do is frame it in such a way where it victimizes a woman. Which is really interesting given Cenk's position in regards to feminism. Because we constantly hear things from feminists about how society supposedly doesn't take female victims seriously. About how points and complaints are taken so much more seriously when they come from a man. About how
we live in a culture that hates women. Just hates us.
So much so that all we need to do is to paint them as victims, and that's the thing that makes people outraged. That women being victimized is the thing that hits people in the feels and makes them actually give a shit about something. It kind of reminds me about what happened in Cologne. There was no widespread conversation about the issues surrounding mass immigration to a particular country, and then women were made the victim of something, and suddenly the media was interested. Never mind that on that night dozens of men were attacked and robbed as well. Women were the victims. They got the attention, they got the spotlight, and people started giving a shit. So which is it, feminists? Does society hate women and not care about them at all? Or does it care so much about them that an imaginary woman will elicit more outrage than an actual black man as a victim?